No, during the discussion. I also want to see.
Change, no.
So this was, he's doing the block grant.
Yes.
You're proposing that.
Yeah.
You're doing
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Council meeting for Monday, May 15th. If you will please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. So we have a very busy night this evening. We will begin with public comment, and for the record, we have Councilor John Malero on computer zooming in. So you may hear this voice like just appear out of nowhere. This portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov and will be provided with a link to attend the meeting and instructions on how to participate.
Just before the first speaker comes up, I'd like to make a motion, if that's possible, to move item B, authorization to apply for the 2023 Connecticut Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program to a position just after public comment is completed.
So section 8B. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone from the public who wishes to be heard?
Rich Paulich, Policio, 8 Washington Street, Rocky Hill. Madam Mayor, members of the council, town manager, and the director of not public safety, director of finance. I'm a former member of the Rocky Hill Town Council and also the past chairperson of the Public Safety Committee. I realize I've sat there and budget sessions are not the best part of your duties as a councilor or the mayor. But I would hope that you can find somewhere in the budget to hold the mill rate. There's rumors of a 1.4 mill rate increase. It's not easy, I know. Like I said, I've sat there. And also, while I applaud the police department, I would like to see the SRO, the school resource officer, kept into the budget, but as a patrol officer, not in the schools. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we will move on. Oh, so sorry.
Hi, Alan Smith, 112 Old Main Street. And we're going to be talking about and voting on the budget most likely tonight. So we spent a lot of time with that, talking about a lot of individual smaller items, which, you know, at the end of the day, they don't really affect the bottom line that much. We've talked about part-time library hours, parks and recs and fields, senior lunches, postage. And while at the end of the day, these things are all important, you know, it seems like most likely we're probably going to settle on pretty similar budgetary numbers. You know, at the end of the day, we made some tweaks and stuff with that, I guess you guys have, which is, just like said before, 1.4 mil increase, which comes out to about 3%, which, believe it or not, is not terribly bad, especially when we look at our neighbors and we look at how the cost of everything has gone up. Just our neighbors next door, Weathersfield, their taxes are going up like, or the budget's going up like 7.7% or something like that. So 3 is not really that bad. But what I think we're not really focusing on is the lack of growth. We're focusing on the things that we're spending money on, but it doesn't seem that we've really focused on the revenue side of it and the income side. When it comes to our grand list, for instance, hasn't grown hardly at all in the last few years. This year, the grand list when it comes to real estate property actually went down 0.33%. Part of that is because of a couple of properties that we lost an assessment appeal and we had to pay them back. I'd like to know a little bit more about how all that stuff works, but that's neither here nor there. So our grand list grew like 0.88%. And yet, what are we doing to invest in that grand list getting higher other than on the back of our property taxes going up? So in the current budget, we're eliminating economic development director position, and we're taking grant writer out of that. We're also not going to have a grant writer. So where does the slack get picked up? The town manager has indicated that's coming a lot from Middlesex Chamber of Commerce, which they're great. I spend time in the Middlesex Chamber, but they represent a lot more than just Rocky Hill. So when a company comes and says they want to move somewhere in the area, they want to expand, why is the Middlesex Chamber going to say you should move to Rocky Hill, not Cromwell, not Portland, Middletown, Old Saybrook, whatever? And yet we're relying on them to pick up the slack for economic development. And it's been my experience generally, grant writing is best done by a grant writer, not by putting that off on the individual departments. So at the end of the day, the only significant opportunity for revenue growth that we've had lately has been the Ames development. That probably would have been eventually when they, start building everything, like $700,000 a year. That's where people get the $7 million that was bandied around a lot. But instead, they're not paying any increase over a vacant building for 10 years. Now, the majority voted for that as a handout. I don't know why. I mean, if the property doesn't benefit us economically anymore, then, why do we do that? Have we set a precedent now? Every time we do have economic development, we're just going to give them a tax incentive and our bottom line doesn't increase at all anyway. So who does pick up that next 3% in the next budget? The taxpayers of Rocky Hill, the residents. So, if the money's not coming from growth, then it's coming from us. And I think the town, going forward, we may approve this budget. It's not a terribly big increase, but we need to focus on investing for economic growth in the future, because if a town is not growing, then it's dying. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Good evening, Town Council. Tom Kosker, 52 Tall Pines Lane. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Rocky Hill Commission on Inclusion and Innovation, just with a brief update for you all. As you may know and be aware, we had a meeting on April 26th at which we took public comment and got quite a bit of good public input. We had about 25 or 30 members of the public present for that meeting. We had about 8 or 10 that provided comment either at the meeting or via email. Right now, what we're doing, just as means of an update, is we're taking a lot of that input from the public. We're kind of putting it together. We're going to have a list to give to you guys, to give the council in the coming weeks, with a list of ideas and stuff that have come from the community. We've got a lot of really good ideas, actually, from them. So not that I'm surprised. So we got some really good ideas. Some other things and activities that we have cooking and continue to work on, which are related to this part, is we have the survey that we're continuing to use and get the word out. We've gotten really good responses. We've got over, I think, 200 to 300 responses already from that. We continue to spread the word about that. So if anyone's listening, you can go to the website and fill out the survey about your thoughts on inclusion in Rocky Hill and in the state of Rocky Hill. We're also continuing to work and plan for our focus groups, which are going to probably be happening in the fall, to get some more pointed input from the community. We're also in the planning stages of an event, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but we are working on that as well. We're collaborating with a number of community members, one of very important which is the statewide kind of Commission Inclusion, or Inclusion Commission, right? The statewide version, which is the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. And I've practiced it enough, so I got it down pat. But it's a mouthful. So we're working with that commission, as well on some of this work. So, and they've been very helpful. So, just wanted to give you guys that update from the commission. Again, I know we'll probably at some point in the future present in a little more formal manner to you guys. But I just figured I'd take the opportunity since we just had that meeting a couple weeks ago. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, we can't talk to you because it's public comment.
Sure.
But I'm wondering if you were to continue, were you going to tell us when the survey deadline is?
So, if I were happen to fill in that blank without Mayor Murata asking me a question, I would say that the survey is an ongoing thing. So what we're doing with the survey is that it's really going to be up kind of, it's not a forever thing, but it's going to be up for a while. So I'll say, months and months, if not a year. Because it's going to go in phases, right? There's going to be times when we get some input. There's going to be some times where something's happening in the community. We have an opportunity to spread the word. I'll give you an example. At our event in the fall, when we have a Walk a Mile in My Shoes event that we plan, or when we're at Fall Fest, and those places will be other places, we'll snapshot that at different points in time and capture the input from the community via the survey. We haven't done that yet, but we'll be doing that soon, and kind of take a snapshot of where we're at and get that input, kind of collate it, and that'll kind of feed into the work that we're doing. So it's an ongoing process. At some point, we'll put a deadline on it and stop it, but right now, there's no particular deadline. And there's more to come on all of this stuff, so even though you can't ask me questions, that's okay. We can still get to you the stuff later on.
Does anyone else feel compelled to fill in something that he may have forgotten?
Did I miss anything?
No. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move on to new business, authorization to apply for the 2023 Connecticut Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program.
Make the resolution? Read
Sure.
the resolution?
Yes.
Before I do so, should I read the scope of work? It's rather quick.
Yeah, do you want to do it, or I can do it either way?
Go, be my guest.
Sure. In your package, I added proposed scope of work for this particular project, up to $2 million worth of work. Remove and replace 7 roofs, upgrade to existing alarm system, remove and replace windows and blinds in 40 of the units, plus the community building. But that's about 114 windows. Remove and replace original bathtub and showers to walk-in showers in 35 of the units. Renovate.
Okay.
Pardon me?
I said, what was
Oh,
that?
let me repeat that.
I'd like you to repeat that.
Remove and replace original bathtub and showers to walk-in showers in 35 units. Renovate 4 existing units into 4 ADA compliant units. Remove and replace original closet doors in 37 of the units. Remove and replace flooring in 35 units and the community building. Remove and replace kitchen and bathroom and exhaust fans in 40 units and the community building. Repave the driveway, some of the driveway, I imagine. Additional ADA parking spaces and additional site work, which consists of line striping, curbing, catch basins. Repair some concrete sidewalks and electrical and lighting upgrades in the community building, and also energy efficient upgrades. And that is all I have.
No, and with that, make a motion to accept the resolution. I'll read the resolution. Authorized to apply for the 2023 Connecticut Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program. Whereas federal monies are available under the Connecticut Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program administered by the State of Connecticut Department of Housing pursuant to Public Law 93-383 as amended, and whereas pursuant to Chapter 127C and Part 4, is that Part 4 of Chapter 130 of the Connecticut General Statutes of the Commissioner of Housing is authorized to disperse such federal monies to local municipalities, and whereas it has been determined that the Rocky Hill Housing Authority's housing complex located at 36 Willow Road is in need of renovation, modernization, and whereas it is desirable and in the public interest that the town of Rocky Hill make application to the state for $2 million in order to undertake a small cities community development program for renovation, modernization to the Rocky Hill Housing Authority's housing complex located at 36 Willow Road, and to execute an assistance agreement, therefore, should one be offered. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the town council, one, that it is cognizant of the conditions and prerequisites for the state assistance imposed by Part 4 of Chapter 130 of the Connecticut General Statutes, and two, that the filing of an application by the town of Rocky Hill in the amount not to exceed $2 million is hereby approved for renovation, modernization to the Rocky Hill Housing Authority housing complex located at 36 Willow Road, including but not limited to replacement of windows, blinds, doors, flooring, roofs, kitchen and bathroom ventilation and lighting, tub shower unit replacement, repair of sidewalks, repavement of driveways and added parking, and that the town of Rocky Hill is hereby authorized and directed to file such application with the Commissioner of the Department of Housing to provide such additional information to execute such other documents as may be required by the Commissioner to execute an assist agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance if such an agreement is offered, to execute any of the amendments, rescissions, and revisions thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Rocky Hill. And it'll be signed by Sandra Merrill, Wibala Town Clerk, Town of Rocky Hill.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just had a question. If there was a request in between for folks in support of the project to help, I guess, provide letters in favor of the grant, do we know if that's limited to elected officials or if members of the public want to lend their support? Do we know the mechanism for doing that? And if not, is that something that we could get out to folks?
Yeah, I imagine that letters of support are welcome from anyone within the community, residents, town councilors, representatives, senators.
And do we know who those letters go to?
Yeah, initially they can be sent to Daniel at the town hall, and then Daniel will send them to the appropriate location.
Thank you.
And just to correct, when I was reading the resolution, I said Part 4 of the chapter. It's Part 6 of the chapter in both places where I mentioned Part 4, or Chapter 4. So.
No, you need to read it all over again.
No.
Okay, fine.
All right. Any more discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay. Moving along to appointments and resignations. Councilor Duff, do you have any?
No appointments or resignations.
Deputy Mayor?
Madam Mayor, no appointments or resignations.
Awesome. Approval of minutes. A, Town Council Budget Workshop, April 18th, 2023. Was everybody here participating? I think so. Yeah. All right.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve said minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And then,
Aye.
thank you. And then for Budget Workshop, April 25th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve said minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Subcommittee reports, Finance.
The Finance Committee did meet on May 11th. We had a pretty quick meeting. A couple items that went through. Town completed their tax sale. We had $470,000 that were collectible. Before the tax sale, we were able to collect several of those properties, delinquent taxes. We will have collected $409,000. 2 properties remain in bankruptcy, accounting for the additional $61,000. That'll be an item mentioned again for the budget as an additional revenue source. Building permit fees are at 99% as of April due to some development in town. We'll also mention that as part of the budget workshop, our budget approval process. The last item we discussed at that meeting is our interest revenue is $300,000 over budget, so another item for our budget process. Our next meeting is currently scheduled for June 8th, but due to some scheduling conflicts, we'll be looking to reschedule that meeting or postpone to July.
Correct. Thank you. Government operations.
Government Operations has not met since our last town council meeting. We are next scheduled to meet on Monday, June 5th.
Thank you. Public safety.
Public Safety did meet earlier this evening, and I can report that fire responded to 59 incidents year-to-date, 224. Training hours recorded were 231 year-to-date. They've already trained 1,465. 0 firefighter injuries reported. Total fire department membership is 64 with 58 active currently. And the reimbursement for trips to the highway, to I-95 to assist in motor vehicle accidents is now billed at $85,000 to the state, and the state is reimbursing us at a good clip, so that program is working well for us. The ambulance reports total of 342 calls for the month of April, which brings the 2023 total to 1,493 calls. There were a total of 9 canceled calls, none of which were no patient contacts, and 1 call that was canceled prior to arrival. There were 5 lift assists for the month and 25 patient refusals for transport. There have been 3 opioid-related transports, and there have been 3 cardiac arrests for the 2023 year. Active writing members, 39, associate members, non-writing, 9, probationary members in training, 15, 2 are on medical leave, and 4 are away at college, a total membership of 69. We had a report from the Aetna ambulance, which supplements our town ambulance services, mostly during the daytime hours. And this is the first time that we had them, so we're getting acquainted with how the 2 programs complement each other and providing the services, and we look forward to their continued reports as we go forward to learn how those 2 departments work together for us in ambulance. Rocky Hill Fire Police Department reported total calls for service for April, 3,290 call-ins, criminal arrests 24, motor vehicle accidents 32, DUI 0, infractions issued 44, warnings issued 125, town tickets issued 8, training hours are at 425. There's been a small spike in the car theft incidents in April, and we are still active on Task Force 24 in Hartford, so that is good news. The car theft task force. We have 3 officers on light duty. We had 1 resignation from dispatch, which will have to be replaced. Otherwise, we're running at full staff, and the department is fully complemented. The no report from emergency management, and the health district just had a pretty positive report in that COVID-19 officially ended, but the heightened level of concern ended on May 11th, and all things are well. And yes, they are seeing an uptick in ticks and the Lyme disease and the normal other types of things that we worry about this time of year. Next meeting is June 19th.
Thank you. Senior liaison.
Senior liaison has not met since our last council meeting. We meet quarterly. Our next meeting is July 24th at 5 p.m.
Thank you. Land acquisition and farmland preservation.
No meeting. Our next meeting is going to be June 27th.
Okay. Liaison to the state representative and the state senator.
No report.
School liaison.
No report. Thank you.
Capital Improvements Committee.
No meetings and no report.
Economic Development Subcommittee?
Also, no meeting, no report.
Okay, nothing to report on the consent agenda, so we'll move to old business aid, discussion possible action, American Rescue Plan ARP funding options. Moving along. To new business A, discussion possible action, adoption of 2023-2024 budget.
I guess I'll start with the budget process. As I mentioned in the finance report, there's a couple of items on the revenue side of the budget that our finance director can address. Mona, do you want to start with those
Sure.
items?
Sure. So in our current year, the 22-23 year, we had two sources of funds to be transferred in, $450,000 coming in from the fund balance and about $2.8 million coming in from the ARPA funds. Because the 22-23 year is doing very well on the revenue side, we've had a great increase in interest investment income, over $300,000. We had, as Alan had mentioned, a great success in the tax sale, bringing in additional revenue for that. We've also seen over $300,000 come in already for permit revenue for the Kelson Row. With that being said, the fund balance portion will transfer in. The next portion to transfer to cover the year would be from the ARPA. With that, you'll see a resolution coming up for the, which will guide us toward the 23-24 budget by freeing up an additional $100,000 of ARPA funds. As we built the 23-24 budget, we had earmarked $980,000 to transfer in. I think we could comfortably say that the $1,080,000 that's on this first resolution should be considered for a 23-24 source of revenue. Also, on the revenue side, because we're going to be adopting on the expenditure side, you'll see an increase, as I said, in the building permits, that we will still see the remaining portion of permits coming in on Kelson Row. We have a number of other building projects, so we're anticipating that we could adjust that building permit revenue by an additional $100,000. So with those two pieces in mind, I would say that we should be able to recognize at least a 1/10 mil increase on the revenue side after this resolution for the extra $100,000 of ARPA.
All right, so I'll start with the resolution for the American Rescue Plan. Be it resolved that the Rocky Hill Town Council authorizes the town manager to use $1,080,000 of proceeds for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 in the Town of Rocky Hill 2023-2024 annual budget.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Moving forward first of all, let me start with thanking the town manager and the finance director, as well as all the departments for the work on this year's budget. This year's budget came in, proposed budget at a 1.4 mil increase. It was a pretty tight budget to start with, so not much we could really cut out of it from what was there to continue to offer the services that residents have become accustomed to. So unlike other budgets, now that we have a little bit additional on the revenue side, we're going to be adding items into the budget. So for the purposes of this, we're going to go line by line to discuss items within the budget, and then we could add others if others are within the council, and then we'll move to approve the full budget. So the first recommendations were to make to the current budget would be code 01101400, object 5328, planning division, consulting fees, $20,000, and that would be to work on our plan of conservation and development.
Is it 5326?
5326.
Sorry, 53, maybe I need the glasses, 5326.
Pull it up on your computer.
Any discussion on that item? No.
Just the intention is that we'll use the consultant to help develop augment our existing resources for the revised plan of conservation and development.
Correct. Moving on to item 2, 01-202-104, object 5620, police patrol fuel, increase to $12,000.
Any discussion? Any questions? Okay.
Do we want to just explain, sorry, what that is versus the proposed? Because I think we had a couple different.
Sure, so you want me to address it, Ray, or would you like to address it?
Okay. Yes, originally we had a decrease of 24,000 in fuel, and we have worked with the department. We've discussed the viability of the assigned versus take-home vehicles, and working with the department with the addition of the 12,000 that will be able to accommodate the needs of the department, and working with the town manager.
Thank you.
Okay, the third item, 014-00-100, object 5327, health district fees, an increase of $11,000. And those were our Central Connecticut Health District fees that went up after the proposed budget was put together. If there's no questions, I'll continue on. Code 01400-200, object 5111, human services, full-time salaries, $71,000. And that is funding a position that was already approved for a social worker due to the increased volume of work within that department.
So I do have a question about that position, a couple of questions. So first of all, is that position currently filled or vacant?
Currently vacant. It was filled, and then shortly thereafter became vacant. And it was proposed to not fill that position this year.
And so is this a position that was added in the context of the COVID outbreak?
Yes, it was using our ARPA funds.
So if we would go back then to the staffing level for 2019, say the last year before the start of COVID, so this would be an additional position above and beyond.
Correct.
And looking at staffing in general on human services as compared to 2019, is this the only additional position, or is there any other position as well that would represent additional staffing above and beyond the 2019 level?
There were two.
There was one other, but that was in the Division of Youth Services. And right now, that particular individual is kind of overlapping the youth service and human service needs at this time. So there was one youth service, one human service, both through ARPA, new positions for the COVID time.
So the total was 2. Right now, 1 is vacant, and this proposed putback is to keep us at the +2 level, as I understand it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And do we have any other alternative funding sources for this position or other options outside of our operating budget that we could apply so it would reduce the mill rate?
No. Yeah.
I think at this time we have some special revenue funds that have been able to absorb consultant, for any gaps where they can't meet the needs without the full-time person. However, special revenue wouldn't be able to fund a full-time employee. It's not for full-time staffing. It should be for services and so forth.
On an as-needed basis,
Right.
when we have when Human Services has a need, we can possibly fund temporarily out of that
So it's more
line item.
Go on, sorry. It's more of a temporary gap fill than actually
Yes.
hiring into.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions on that line item?
No.
I'll continue on. 019-50-000, object 5763, capital improvements, vehicles, highway department, an addition of $15,000. And just to kind of refresh everybody on that, we had a vehicle that was over 20 years old, and by adding $15,000 to the budget and financing a new vehicle over 5 years instead of 3 years, we could now update the fleet for both vehicles. The the long-term offset to that is it'll reduce repairs and maintenance, because at this point, we can't even get parts for the vehicle that's in need of repair.
And is that 15 the lease payment over the 5 years, or is that the increase over the existing line item?
That's the increase over the existing line item.
Okay.
And that'll probably be a 5-year lease or purchase, however they end up going.
Thanks.
No other questions on that? And the last item, 019000300, object 5808, contingency. And this is to increase our contingency by $70,000. I'm going to say this is the first time in 6 years I've actually proposed increasing the contingency budget. Usually it's a number that we're working to decrease. I think we went extremely lean on it this year. We did so partly because we had a mild winter, and I wouldn't wager that we'd have a second mild winter. So we want to make sure we're able to handle that should we need it.
That would bring us up to about 320,000? Yeah.
Right.
Those are the only ads I have, and then I would open it up if there's any other items that any other counselors would like to add or delete.
Yeah, I'd like to propose, and I don't have the code or the object because I want to make sure I'm precise. I was looking up on my phone, but I'd like to raise for consideration that in terms of a budget adjustment, we remove the expenditure for the added SRO. I certainly understand the impetus behind it. I think they are arguments that are compelling. The challenge that I have is, being up here, looking at our budget. Every year we look at it and say, well, 83% of this can't move. It's pre-negotiated. It's salaries, it's benefits, it's pension. It's agreed to commitments. Every choice we make encumbers the freedom of movement for future councils. And what we do, and particularly issues that are very emotional like this one, is we look at our experts. In this case, we've had our public safety experts, the past chief and our current interim chief, mention that they felt comfortable with the current staffing levels. It's challenging for me to go above and beyond that to look past that when we're looking at between salary, benefits, pension, $140,000, it just doesn't go away. And I think that is a challenge, especially as we're looking at next year's budget, where we'll probably be asked for another SRO to get one in every school. I understand why the ask is, but I have a hard time getting there. When we have to look at every dollar, because we have a reval this year. Mill rate may go down because of that, but the bill that we get in the mail is still going to go up, and next year is going to be tough too. So I think we have to really take a scalpel to every position that we have, and I would recommend that we consider not including that. I think that we also, because we've added in contingency, if it becomes there's a pressing need, if the facts change, perhaps we get someone with an early start mid-year, if we need to do that as a fallback. But, in listening to our experts, I didn't find it personally compelling that we would need to have one in the way they're being used to augment the staff that we currently have.
So I'd like to echo Councilor Duff's points with respect to the SRO. We currently have 2.5 SRO positions in place. We have 5 schools. The proposal here is for an additional full-time position. I think we can see where this is going. If this additional position is added, it's going to create momentum. I suspect unstoppable momentum in future years to get to the point of 5 full-time positions for the 5 schools, so we have 1 per school, double the 2.5 that we have right now. I echo Chris's point that Chief Custer, one of his very last sessions here before public safety, we specifically asked him about his comfort level with the current staffing level for SROs. He made it quite clear that he's comfortable in that regard. Interim Chief Klett has echoed that they feel that they're well covered in that regard. We also had him describe in public safety, or no, maybe it was here before the full council, the nature of the responsibilities for the SROs. It seems very much oriented more towards the older kids, high school level, middle school level, the sort of things that they're doing that doesn't translate as readily to kids in the grade schools. So I agree with Councilor Duff on this, that we should defer to the experts on this, which is our heads of law enforcement. I don't see why we were, in effect, looking to push a position on them that they have not requested and that they have not indicated that they need. The second point I want to make, and I just want to pick up on something that I alluded to with respect to the human services position. So I think we could all see this coming. So we had an enormously harmful health crisis that hit us in 2020 that fortunately proved to be a temporary emergency. We got temporary funding from ARP for what theoretically was to be temporary positions to get us through the crisis. The crisis, at least as officially designated emergency, has ended. The ARP funding has ended, and I believe the positions should end. These were supposed to be positions to get us over a hump, to deal with a very specific crisis, and once that has abated, the funding goes away, and the justification for those positions in the first place does as well. So this putback here puts us at +2 over the funding we had in social services as of 2019. If we take this out, we're still at +1. I'm okay with +1. But by the reason I gave, we should be back to where we were. But I can understand perhaps some lingering needs and other things that have been identified since then that may justify going up +1. But I feel that we've kind of fallen into this trap that we're given what looked like free money for a short period of time. We get addicted to it. We get addicted to the positions. And now the money is going away, and now it's going to be a taxpayer responsibility. So I do not believe we should be putting back this particular position for human services. And again, I would recommend a further removal of the proposal for the additional SRO. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're just talking about the SRO?
No,
You're talking about both?
Both, yeah. That's just in summary. Yep.
Okay. I agree with Counselor O'Sullivan. I think the human services position, again, as he said, is part of the ARP funding. They're still +1, which should be sufficient. And if there are special revenues that could be used for backfilling if they need to, if there's a need to add a few people, to add some sessions in. Other departments have been asked to use special revenues. Other departments have been asked to absorb cuts. So I think I would suggest removing that $71,000. Regarding the SRO, again, if there's an educational need for, there's positions that the Board of Education put in that were ARP money, and they're saying we need these for education, I'm going to defer to the experts who are the teachers, the superintendent, and the Board of Ed. Likewise, if we're talking about public safety, I need to defer to our experts, the former chief and the current acting chief, that they're comfortable with the level of SROs that we have now. Also, we asked questions during the budget session on facilities improvements and so forth that we had to ensure about security, and the acting chief was comfortable with what we have in place at this time. So I support removing the SRO at this time from our budgeting, as well as the human services.
Start with
Sure,
here?
we'll start.
Okay, thanks.
So we're going to start, John, we're going to start with Counselor Levine.
Great, thank you.
We skipped over you because you're not in your seat. Imagine.
So I'm just going to speak to the couple points that were brought up in the comments. Human service, I think others could probably speak better than I can, so I'm just going to briefly say that we're hearing that the department's really overworked, even with the one extra person. And while the COVID emergency has ended as of a few days ago, it seems like the lingering effects from the social side have not ended from what we're hearing. And we think there's still, sounds like a great need, but I'm going to let others talk about it more because they probably have more detail. I am going to talk a little more about the SROs. As someone who's been in accounting and finance and tries to shave every dollar off of everything, I appreciate the comments made. But I think this is important add, and here's why. Just to give an example, I don't know if everybody saw the news today in Middletown. Did anybody see that? schools went into lockdown today in Middletown because they had people stealing stuff out of cars in 2 of the Middletown schools. All the schools had to be closed down. There's obviously a need for police presence at these schools, and just today was the latest example of it. One topic that I've never really heard discussed, but from my understanding would be the case that when an SRO is, when school is out, the SRO is actually still another police officer we would have for patrol purposes. And as it turns out, it would be primarily during the summer months when school is out. Obviously school vacation during the year, there's a week here and there, but primarily during summer vacation. And somewhat coincidentally or not, that seems to be when the car theft rings are at their highest. So it'd be nice to have an extra police officer patrolling or backing up the police that are patrolling or investigating during those months when it seems to spike a bit. So I think that's another added benefit. Currently, we have 1 dedicated SRO for the high school, and we have 1 other dedicated plus a half that gets rotated around for the other 4 schools. I think another one is definitely warranted. I don't think it necessarily means we're moving to having 5 SROs down the road. We don't add 10 police officers every year. We strategically add 1 as needed, and then we'll think about it again. So I would be in favor of still adding the SRO. One last point, in the comments that were made during the budget, it was also, interim chief did also say, quote, with the 3rd, we can do even better. So if we're going to listen to the experts, I think that's a good way to go to. So that's all.
Okay, Councilor Malero?
Yes, hi, good evening. I myself am leaning towards starting with the SROs and keeping that because we are facing with a paradigm shift based on new needs. Not to regurgitate what Councilor Levine has indicated, we can hear it on the news all the time. And again, from what the chief has indicated, leaning towards would like to have the extra assistance. So that's something that I would like to just see, just because of the fact that of that shift that we're seeing publicly, and we're hearing that on the news constantly. With regards to the human services positions, again, there's a paradigm shift. There's new needs needed, as we've heard on some of the items that they discussed previously, and so that's something that I think we need to support based on those items. So I'm in favor of keeping those 2.
Okay, thank you. Sure.
Marcus, do you want?
Yeah, I would just second the thoughts on this issue from Councilor Levine and Councilor Malero, because as a school liaison, in the past few weeks, I've heard from several parents, just like me in town, who are perennially worried about the safety of their children. And I think, as I understand, this position, like Councilor Levine said, can be utilized as a patrol officer, as a patrolman during the summertime. So I do see a need for this in our community. Like Councilor Malero said, there is a paradigm shift in this area of school safety, I guess, over the last several years. Unfortunately, that's the way things have turned out. So I do support this position, as well as the other position for human services, because also we have heard from Melissa and others who support this position that there is a need for mental health and other services in this town, which is growing. And as a matter of fact, as a town, we are growing. So these needs are becoming more real every day, with all the focus on and awareness on mental health issues. So I think both these positions, as much as I like to be not adding any more to our payroll, these positions, I think, deserve to be filled, and that's why I'm supporting them. Thank you.
Sure, and as the As the chair of the Public Safety Commission for the last 4 years, I can tell you that I sat in many a meeting. Well, first, let me say I support the resolution of the add backs that Councilor Greenspan presented, and the resolution on the ARPA, the use of the ARPA funds. But with regards to the positions that we're debating right now, I have to say that as the public safety chair, we've sat on many meetings where the prior police chief it was supporting the Board of Ed's ask. We were in private meetings asking for SRO. So we slowly started working. This doesn't happen overnight, and we work on it as back as 4 years ago. And here we are. We've finally achieved full staffing of our patrol officers, and Board of Ed is still asking for support in the schools with SROs. It's been explained to us by both chiefs, now the acting chief, Chief Collette, that SROs go through an additional certification. So you just don't take a patrol officer, plop them in a school. SROs are specially trained to be in those school systems and to be in that environment with our youth. So I think we want to have that capacity and that ability. Further, the health crisis, mental health crisis that had presented itself during the pandemic is growing. And we used to get in the neighborhood of 2,400 calls for service into dispatch. We now average, for the last 2 years, in excess of 3,100 calls for service. So, and of those calls, yes, many of them are mental distress calls. So we're asking, as Councilor O'Sullivan spoke earlier this evening at Public Safety, we're asking for de-escalation techniques of our patrol officers and to respond to these mental health calls. And our Human Services is trying to support them in that effort. So it's a sincere ask. It's a new paradigm. It's a new dimension to the problems that our patrol officers have to try to address. And I support our Human Services trying to support our patrol officers out on the street in their efforts to safely police our streets.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Greenspan?
So I'm going to kind of lump these two items together. I'll just say that in the last several years, the paradigm has shifted. Growing up, we never talked about mental health and the need for mental health services. And now it's become acceptable, and the need is there for these type of services. I've talked to a few people not really affiliated with the town that are social workers. There's not enough social workers out there right now. I mean, the demand is that high. They're in group settings where people need individual settings, and we have a need to fill a spot here within the town. The demand is there. COVID probably brought that out. So for that reason, I support the position in Human Services. The SRO position, I take a similar approach. COVID brought to light that there's a mental health issue. Students in particular did not react well to not being in school or in social settings. Now, Rocky Hill did have active school during that time, but our students, our kids were still affected by it. As we discussed the SRO position at the budget workshops, we talked about funding a position within the budget, but we didn't define how that position would be filled. We talked about an SRO, we talked about a social worker, we talked about an armed security guard. All viable solutions, but I'm not an expert. I can't make that recommendation. If we don't put the money within the budget, we don't get any of those solutions. I'll take a step further. The Board of Education has requested this position. I've had parents of students ask me about the position. I haven't had anybody in town come up to me and say, don't fund that spot. So for that reason, I'd be supporting that position.
Okay, thank you. First, I just want to thank Town Manager Carpentino and Finance Director McKim for the many, many, many weeks of hard work and deliberations and effort that they put into this budget. many iterations and a lot of thoughtfulness. And so thank you. Thank you for the new procedure and the new process and for putting it online. What a tremendous, transparent new way to move forward. Thank you for that. And of course, thank you to the entire council for the many hours that you have spent poring over these budget numbers. And I know that everyone wants to do what's in the best interest of the public. And while we may not always get there on the same line, it's okay to disagree. And I know that we all want to support everyone in the best way possible. Having said that, I think with respect to the human services position, for us to think that mental health is no longer a crisis simply because the COVID pandemic is no longer a crisis is short-sighted. As someone who sits on a number of public safety and public health policy-making committees, who makes recommendations to state lawmakers, I can tell you that we are just beginning to address mental health in this state. We're nowhere near where we need to be. And to eliminate a position that came into place specifically because of all of the chaos that was caused by COVID at this point is just something I could never, ever support. And with respect to the SRO, I kind of want to touch base upon, I can't speak for the chief, prior chief, the interim chief, but I do want to comment on this notion of them saying they were feeling comfortable with 2.5 SROs out there. I would imagine that, having that half a person out there made them feel comfortable. But for us as counselors and using taxpayer dollars, paying for that half a person via overtime funds doesn't seem like the fiscally prudent thing to do. I don't think we should ever rely on paying overtime as a way to solve a problem. If we have the ability to solve the problem, then we need to do it because overtime is very costly. And the other thing is that the SRO comes out of the town side, right? And so we can say the police aren't asking for this, the chief didn't ask for this. But it goes to the Board of Education. The Board of Education is uniquely situated and uniquely qualified to understand its needs. And I think that we need to give them the voice, and we need to give those parents the voice, and we need to give them the priority consideration when they're asking us for another school resource officer, especially when you consider the climate today, when you consider all the crime that's happening, the increase in crime. We've already seen it here this summer. Summer hasn't even started, as well as the ongoing mental health needs that we're, again, just beginning to address. So I would fully support the addition of that extra SRO. Thank you. So, yeah.
Listening to the council, I will make a motion to approve the council budget adjustments that I had recommended. Whereas the town council has recommended the following budget adjustment to the town manager's proposed budget 2023-2024, be it resolved that the following budget adjustments for 2023-2024 fiscal year are approved. And I'll just go through the descriptions. Consultant fees, $20,000. Fuel, $12,000. Fees for the health district, $11,000. And these are all increases. Human services, full-time salaries, increase $71,000. Vehicle for the highway department, $15,000. And the contingency, $70,000 for a total of $199,000.
And I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Okay,
Aye.
so for discussion, now we have the motion. and second.
Do you want to discuss again?
Just
If you want to discuss again, we can.
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
just briefly put something on the record before we go to a vote. So I know where this is going. I do, just to explain my vote in advance, we are being asked to vote on 6 amendments in combination. It's on an all or nothing basis. My objection was to one of the 6 items. I agree with 5 of the 6. Given the way this is being presented as sort of all or nothing, I maintain my position that I articulated with respect to the adjustment that I thought should have been made. That said, again, putting in context that the way this has been presented as sort of an all or nothing thing, my vote will be on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 2. Thank you.
I'm almost ready for the,
Okay.
I need the glasses for that one. So I'll make a motion for the adoption of the 2023-2024 annual budget. Be it resolved that the fiscal year 2023-2024 general fund budget dated May 15th, 2023, as itemized by department, board, committee, commission, or other purposes, and provide for the total expenditures of the amount of $95,238,306, with $51,669,153 for the Board of Education, $8,124,953 for debt retirement, and $35,454,200 for departments, boards, committees, commissions, and other purposes of the town of Rocky Hill, be and hereby adopted pursuant to Section 806 of the town charter. Be it further resolved that for fiscal year 2023-2024, tax levy for the town of Rocky Hill shall be established at the amount of $81,275,819, and the tax rate upon the grand list of October 1st, 2022 shall be $35.92 per $1,000 of taxable value of real property and for personal property. And with the tax rate upon the grand list of October 1st, 2022 shall be $32.46 per $1,000 of taxable value for motor vehicles. Be it further resolved that tax bills in the following amounts shall be due in one installment on July 1, 2023. Real estate tax bills of $300 or less, all motor vehicle tax bills, personal property tax bills of $500 or less. Be it further resolved that all tax bills shall be due in 2 equal installments, payable without interest and/or penalty on July 1, 2023, and January 1, 2024. Be it further resolved that all motor vehicle and personal property tax bills in the amount of $2 and under are hereby waived. Be it further resolved that the town manager is hereby authorized to secure bids for items approved in the budget, subject to the provisions of the charter. Be it resolved that the capital improvement program 2023-2024 through 2028-2029 and be hereby adopted pursuant to sections 802 and 806 of the town charter. Be it further resolved that the capital improvement program 2023 and 2024 through 2028 and 2029 is a forecast of capital expenditures and may be modified to meet changes in priorities that occur within the community over time. The certification. The foregoing resolution was adopted by the town council, or will be adopted by the town council of Rocky Hill, May 15th, 2023, at our 2023 council meeting, I'm sorry.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I have just a question. When it talks about the mill rate, it has dollar signs there, and I think there should be 35.92 mils and 32.46 mils for the car. It's got dollar signs there, and that's a little confusing.
That's the way we
Wouldn't that
do
be
it.
that's the mill rate, isn't it?
Yeah, the mill is per thousand, so it's $35.92 per $1,000, $35.92 per thousand.
Because it's got dollar signs there, and it looks like it's $35.92. I think it should say mils, right? 35.92 mils per thousand and 32.46 mils per thousand for town, yeah. That's just, I just want to clarify that.
That's fine.
It's not
If you want
dollars,
to say
it's
as water.
Oh, well, it is actually the dollars, though, isn't it? It's the dollars.
Per $1,000, right?
Yeah, and the way this equation is spelled out.
You're saying it
yeah.
for $1,000, that's how you would
That
say
is the
it.
mill rate, though.
Yes.
That's correct.
But you
yeah.
wouldn't say
But you wouldn't say it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're saying per $1,000 of value, then it's the
Right, I
dollar.
get that, but I'm just saying, looking at it, it's confusing. That is the mill rate that we're adopting.
Okay, so now we explained it. Thank you, Mimi.
Yes,
Anyone else?
stays.
Yeah, I just wanted to
Sorry, Bill.
That's all right. So I'm not an expert, but I was in high school in 1999 when Columbine happened. This isn't a paradigm shift. No, it's funny. It happened a while ago, and it's getting further in the past, which is scary. But the paradigm shift that we have is social media. That's the real paradigm shift. And how it amplifies everything, including the really awful things people could do in schools or not. My concern is that as we look to next year's budget, when this request comes up again, because we know it will, it's been very open, and that's fine. I don't blame anybody for advocating on behalf of their budget. We're going to be asked to get an SRO in every school, specifically that request, and phase into that. We should look at doing the right tool for the right job. If we need more help on patrol, we should hire more patrol. If we need mental health in the school, we should hire more guidance counselors or whatever the right person is. I would recommend that over the next year, we really figure out what that is so we don't have a repeat of the same conversation, whoever happens to be sitting here again, because I think that we are rightfully deferential to the Board of Ed in things that are within their domain, but also we're not experts in that. And what we don't want to happen is hire SROs and then or any position and then find out we didn't fill our need and now we need to do something else on top of that. Because once we add these positions, they very rarely go away. And by adding something, we are restricting future council's ability to say yes to other things in the future. So that would just be my recommendation, that we continue to study this as we move forward to see if we really are filling this need in the best possible way.
And I'll just respond to that. I know that one of the state policy committees I sit on, I made a recommendation for a bill which CCM picked up, and they included it in their state legislative packet of recommendations to lawmakers, and it was specific to address school security and SROs because through the CCM, the legislative committee that we attend, everyone is concerned about school safety, and there are lots of different models for SROs, and there are different ways to pay for it. And we were really hoping that some state lawmaker would pick up on that and do sort of a basic template to help us as local leaders navigate this area, which we know is definitely needed. So it's not unique to Rocky Hill. Unfortunately, we did not get a single lawmaker, it looks like, I haven't been notified of one, who wants to address the template that we are all asking for SROs. It is something that we can certainly look at, but as a municipality, I think it's difficult for us to try to figure that out when, you know, there's so many different ways that we can be paying for this and different models. And I would like to see some state guidance in that area. And there was one other thing I wanted to say. I think that's basically it. And also, we were asking for funding because we know how expensive it is, and we were hoping that the governor would perhaps give us a little bit of funding so that we could address school safety.
If I may. So I just want to echo and support Councilor Duff's thoughtful comments. I just want to put something on the record that will echo what I just said a few minutes ago with respect to the amendment. I've stated my respectful disagreement with a couple of elements of this budget. But that said, it adds up to, in dollars, a fraction of 1% of the overall budget. My personal view is, and reasonable minds can disagree on how to approach this, is on a straight up or down vote on the budget as a whole. That degree of disagreement does not necessarily justify voting against the budget as a whole. So I've made my points. I've heard the counterpoints. I respect everyone's view on this. Given the constraints of we don't have line item vetoes here or a vote on each item line by line, my upcoming vote on this should be construed in that context. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm confused. Are you taking back what you said originally, or you're just repeating it? Okay.
Well, no, I'm saying in the context of this vote versus the last one.
What I said about the amendment applies to the budget as a whole. That's my point. This
Okay.
previous vote was on the
Again,
amendment.
you're saying it again for this.
I'm saying it in this
All right,
context,
all
yes.
right, gotcha. All right. Thanks. Okay, anyone else? No? Counselor Prakash?
Yeah, I will go if
okay.
nobody else is going. So first of all, let me start by saying that I'm very thankful to Town Manager Ray Carpentino and Mona McKim, our Finance Director, for answering all my questions in depth for the last 2 budget workshops. My emails, my Excel sheets, and so thank you for that. And thank you for having a transparent process, like the mayor said. I'm really thankful about all the information that you provided. There are certain aspects of the programs I was talking about in the past 2 workshops, which I will connect with you later on those things. But from a budget perspective, I think you provided me enough information to make up my mind on how I vote today on this budget. So thank you for that, both of you, for providing that. So I would like to say Rocky Hill, like most towns, it's not a surprise to us, primarily relies on property taxes to pay its bills. And for the last several weeks, we as council members here, everyone here, including, like I said, the town manager and the finance director and everybody, including the mayor and all the department heads, we have been working hard and listening to our residents and discussing ways to protect the taxpayers of whom we are one, right? I pay taxes in this town as well. So as much as I don't want to raise taxes, as a member of this town, as a resident of this town, I have a responsibility to look at all the facts and make decisions based on what is in front of me and good for the town as a whole, as opposed to what I think is to my personal benefit. So as I said, I've been listening to the residents, and what we are trying to do here is, protect the taxpayer from any unnecessary and unreasonable tax increases, prioritizing our needs as opposed to our wants, and just like many of our taxpayers do every day in this hyperinflationary environment, we are trying to protect our taxpayers from any increases in mill rates. But as I said on the top, the services in the town are funded by property taxes. And to continue to provide high-quality town services that all of us as taxpayers right here in the council as well, have come to expect and rely on, we are doing our best to do that in the environment we are in the hyperinflationary environment we are in, where everything costs more, and we have contractual obligations, as Councilor Duff said, right? So taking all of that into account, so this budget provides high-quality town services that all of us have come to expect, and protects our much-cherished senior programming, as you have heard throughout this process, protects our quality parks and rec programming, including funding for a new youth cricket field that can be utilized for multiple sports all year round. Now, Rocky Hill is a growing town. I guess we all know that, right? More than 19%, but just for, making sure we put this on the record for everybody at home and anybody who is going to watch YouTube videos later, more than 19% of Rocky Hill's population is Asian, according to 2020 census. From 2010 to 2020, town population grew by 6%. So that's the overall increase in town population. The most in Hartford County, that number, right? So we grew by 6%, 19% of that increase the Asian population, right? And in short, Rock Hill is growing, and we are growing more diverse. And we are proactively responding to needs of our diverse population right here in this budget by having that youth cricket field that we can use for other sports throughout the year. And thanks to our Parks and Rec director for coming up with a really effective solution to what we were trying to get at. So in this budget, we are maintaining funding for our top-notch school system as well. As a matter of fact, more than 50% of our school budget, town budget is dedicated to our schools. So this budget also makes school safety a priority, as we have heard here, like for the last half an hour, with providing an SRO. And I'm not going to go into that because I've already talked about that when we were taking the vote. But the SRO position is important to the parents, including myself, as I've said before. I can't stress this enough. Every day, I feel for those parents who worry about their child going to school. We should be not in that environment, but we are. So only way we can respond to that by mitigating some of that stress for our parents. And this does that. Providing for an SRO does that to a certain extent. Again, we cannot eliminate that concern as a parent, but we can mitigate it. And that's what it does. And again, I think we all are trying to do our best on this issue. So I wouldn't blame anyone who is not for this position because they are making their own mind on looking at the facts as they see them, right? So I think everybody is doing what they think is best in good faith, and I respect that. But from my point of view, I'm voting for it for the reasons I have laid out. So the last thing I'll say is this budget ensures long-term fiscal stability of our town, funding the programs and services as we need, as I said on the top, while planning for multiple year predictable expenses, as we have started to do in 2019. Now, there are a lot of hard choices we have made, and we need to make those hard choices because there are no easy choices when you're sitting here. None of us have easy choices. So hope the residents sitting at home appreciate that to a certain extent, the hard choices we have to make here, and realize that we are also town residents who want to do the best for the town as well as our families. So saying that and just kind of, as I've been saying this for the last three years, as Chris said, right? I wish that I don't have to raise anybody's mill rate, including myself. Seriously, guys, do you think I want to pay more taxes? No, definitely not. I don't want to pay any more taxes than the next guy, my neighbor or anybody else. So, but things are what they are, and I think this is the best we can do under the circumstances. So I will be voting for this budget, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't want to belabor any of these points, but since we have mentioned the difference here in this resolution between real property taxes and the personal property and the motor vehicle taxes, I do want to point out that municipalities need a consistent stream of revenue from the state. And we are only allowed to have one source of revenue, essentially, and that is property taxes. And the state has a plethora of programs out there to provide additional funding for us, but there is a lack of consistent funding by the state that continues to hamper our municipality to the extent that we find ourselves with significant gaps in our budget specifically from pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. There are millions of dollars that are owed to our municipality that we are not funded each and every year. Now, with this new cap on car taxes, although the intent was to fully fund us, that intent, my understanding, is a very short-term plan that at the end of 5 years, they want to eliminate car taxes altogether, which is phenomenal. Nobody wants to pay car taxes, but you have to understand that's a huge source of revenue for us, and so it becomes problematic. And what's happening now is we have these gaps in our budget because of that car tax. And while we typically will collect taxes twice a year, the state is only reimbursing us once a year. So we are consistently behind each budget with revenue, and we have to come into this budget with a hole from last year and only collecting half from this year, and we have no say over any of that. So I'm really proud of our ability to get to the 1.4. It's not ideal, but given what we are facing and that lack of support that we continue to see, and it continues to be eroded. I'm glad that we were able to put as much as we were back into this budget and stay at that recommended 1.4. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I think we stayed focused, and we really have what I'm considering that our major priorities in mind. Our children, Board of Ed, our seniors, public safety, job number one. And this budget and the last 4 budgets have addressed those needs as priorities in my tenure, so I'm proud that we stayed focused on our main mission.
Okay. So I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 2. Thank you. Okay, guess what? We're moving on to the mayor's report. And I'm not going to have a mayor's report for you tonight because I think we've covered a lot. And for any event or anything that's been going on the past couple of weeks, thank you all out there for everything you're doing for the municipality, and for all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day. And we'll move on to you.
Can I do the same thing? You have my written report. I can breeze through it if you like.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Regarding the DEEP grant, modifications were made to the original grant. Mona McKim put together a series of modifications that we had discussed, primarily implementing a separate collection pilot program for a pilot area of houses, not townwide at this point, as well as looking for a townwide drop-off program at the transfer station, utilizing the orange bags that we are supposed to utilize with the grant, but utilizing a clear bag for the food scrap portion. Without going into a lot of details, that was the major component, switching from a townwide, and then doing a pilot program to see if we will get the buy-in that was anticipated in the original grant before we move into trying to do this townwide. Eversource will be looking to increase their rates. I'm not sure if anybody is surprised by that, by 9.8%. According to Eversource, the proposed rates look to recover some of their costs and expenses that are critical to maintaining their system. We had discussed the NIP funds. We are rolling out 2 what they call big belly trash and recycling units. They have been ordered. We're going with the smaller units as recommended earlier on a few months ago. So they're more portable. We can relocate them as we need to regarding activities at our different parks. Something that Chief Garrahy forgot to mention in public safety, the mayor and Mike Garahy and Representative Wood are looking at trying to secure for free a used Coast Guard patrol rescue boat. Coast Guard is looking to upgrade some of their fleet, so they have been giving away some of their smaller boats to municipalities. So I'm not sure where we are with that yet, but we're pursuing that. And again, at the request of Mayor Murata, Steve Sopelak is working with DOT to look at the possibility of adding a left turn arrow at the traffic light at the intersection of Britton Avenue, New Road, and Trinity Ridge, trying to reduce the length people have to wait to turn left at that intersection. It's pretty, it's very low level of service. And finally, the Memorial Day Parade, May 29th, beginning at 9:30 a.m., starting at the high school and ending at the historic Center Green. Don't forget, I'll be there. Concludes my report.
Did you want to say something? No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a motion to adjourn.
Sure.
Yeah. Before I make the motion to adjourn, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of it here in the gallery, but or back home, but our mayor was mentioned. The Best of Hartford survey is complete, and our mayor, Lisa Murata, finished second at top as in the leadership category. So the Best of Hartford leadership survey, and she's right up there, number one. So congratulations to our very own mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.